How's it going, everyone? Between the Dots, back at it this week. Another awesome week. Today, in this episode, we're going to be going over a little bit of Leafs talk, a little bit of Sens talk. We're going to give our top 5 suffering/struggling franchises. A little bit of debate there as to who suffers the most in the NHL and which fan base goes through the most agony. And we're also going to get into some other news around the NHL. So thanks for joining us. As always, hosted by myself, along with Mr. Colin Kajowski and Mr. Rory Keith. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, doing great. How are you doing, folks?
I'm good. It's been a good week of hockey. Not necessarily for my Ottawa Senators, but the league is right in full swing, kind of middle of the season now. All-Star break coming up, so it's been good. And yeah, outside of hockey, life's been good too, so can't complain there. How about you, Kijo?
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second because we talked about struggling fan bases, and now you come in with who goes through the most agony, who goes through. Now it's just a completely different question. That's all I'm going to say. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it's going to be good stuff. So this could be, we'll get into that. First things first, why don't we start off at the top with a little bit of Leafs talk. Kijo, how about them Leafs the past week?
Not a good week. Not a good week at all. They are 3 consecutive games. They've given up the go-ahead goal with 5 minutes left or less and have not got any of the games to overtime. So we were talking earlier, a few weeks back, they're good at getting points, at least getting into overtime. If they're not winning the game, they're getting a point. They did not do this past week. It's just hard to see. And I know they're playing better teams now because the week before when they won a few games in a row, they weren't playing the high caliber teams, and now they are. And I don't want to say they're struggling. They're not performing as well as they should be. Last night when Matthews scores 30 seconds in, I thought, okay, this is it. They're going to end Edmonton's streak. It's not at all what happened. They even actually got a 2-0 lead, and it's just, I don't know. I'm all about the offensive firepower, but I'm starting to think that after like TJ Brody, don't know if I love him on a number 1, okay, maybe a number 2 pair. And then Jake McCabe I love. I've always liked Jake McCabe's game, and then Morgan Riley obviously, but I don't think they have enough on D, and it's starting to catch up with them, I think. Albeit they got their 3rd goalie in, but still, they got to win some of these games. You can't out of these games if you have a tie game with 5 minutes left in 3 games, you can't get 0 points. It's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah. That's like, for me, that's the sign of a fragile, not a good playoff team, is ones that are giving up leads. So, I mean, for your sake, hopefully they can clean that up before playoffs. So, what are your thoughts, Roy?
Well, yeah, for me, it's just like a sign of, well, I guess going back, like one of the stats that I saw, I think that this one's pretty apparent, though, in Leafs Nation, but it's the regulation wins, it being down there with like the likes of San Jose's and stuff. And that's just like a sign of not being able to really dominate a game as much anymore. You know, like if you're consistently outshooting and outpacing other teams, putting up 20 or more shots a game, eventually, you know, you're going to have those like more 5-2 wins. It's a little less nerve-wracking for the fans going into OT or shootouts on a nightly basis, or like you said, what's the case with the last week, just the games going into the last 4 or 5 minutes, because the Wings even played the Leafs last week. I wish I watched more of it, but usually the Leafs do actually kind of run away with those games. And yeah, exactly what you mentioned, like Koch gets a goal with a couple minutes left, and it was tied 2-2 and ends up being 4-2 in what mostly seemed like a dull-ish game. Wasn't really like super exciting, what you expect with the original 6 matchup.
I didn't love Sheldon Keefe's comments either after the game last night, saying he thought his team played pretty well. Just like, I think he's got to be more accountable. Not that I think they need a new coach. I myself have never been a really big Sheldon Keefe fan, but I don't know. They gotta hold the team more accountable, and I don't like when you lose three in a row and you're like I said, gave up the lead with less than 5 minutes left, and you just yeah, no, we're playing all right. We had a pretty good game. Like, no, you're not getting any points. You're not playing well enough. So I don't know why you're making it seem like everything's all right.
Do you think that comes
He
from
always
like the
does that.
players though? Do you think it comes from the players? Like, where's John Tavares been?
Yeah, I don't know. It bugs me if this is like just a way for him to protect his players, keep them positive, because I know a lot of these guys probably don't want to hear what the media says, or any of them don't for that matter. But I just, I don't know. They got to hold them more accountable. And yeah, like Tavares has got to be better. A lot of guys got to be better. But I don't know. It all starts, in my opinion, from the coach and the directive. Every game going in, I guess he's switching like things up. But I don't know. It's not good enough right now.
That's been Keefe just throughout his time with the Leafs, though, too, right? Like, just always saying, like, yeah, they were fine. They're like, oh, the players are fine. Like, whatever. Just kind of, like, sometimes you got to give them a bit of a hard punch, you know? Got to give them a little bit of a wake-up call. And he seems a little bit too, or whatever it is, to do that.
Yeah. Well, on the bright side, at least you're not the Ottawa Senators, who are sitting dead last still in the Eastern Conference, and their week wasn't much better. The only team that we got our first win of 2024, so Sens are at least on the board in that regard. They beat the Sharks, so big celebration there by 1 goal with like 5 seconds left. So
Tough matchup there.
yeah, at least they got that done. But yeah, just a poor week again from them. At this point, it's starting to, the saying "slacking for Macklin" is starting to pop up, because they're totally out of it. I don't remember the last time they actually beat a playoff team. That was like, they beat the Sabres a little while back. I genuinely don't think they've beaten a playoff team since then. Like long before Christmas, long before December. So it's been a while.
Last night I had a little bet going, and I took the Avalanche over the Sens, and I look at my phone, it's 4-2 Sens, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't good. Sure enough, like, I put it down, pick it up 20 minutes later. Oh, 6-4 Avalanche, not bad.
Yeah, see, you made the mistake. You gotta wait for the live bets and then bet the Sens to lose when they're up 4-2, because it's just inevitable at this point that they're gonna collapse. So wait a little bit for the odds to shift, like the Sens are gonna win. Then you make your bets. That's what
Yeah,
I
it's all right.
recommend.
I had 5 of 6 right on the parlay until I had Leafs over the Oilers. So
Oh, that's tough.
yeah.
That's tough when the last leg doesn't hit. That is tough. No, so it's been a tough week for both the Leafs and the Sens, and in honor of those struggles, we wanted to give you our top 5 suffering franchises. And suffering, by our definition, covers a wide variety of things. It includes things like, what their fans have to go through every year in terms of like their postseason success. It also has to do with their like anything to be like their location, the demeanor of the team, just suffering franchises. So why don't you kick us off for suffering franchises, Rory?
I like how you were casually, indirectly pointing right at Leafs fans when you were explaining what our definition was. I like how it's you two. I like how it's like you two just kind of constantly butting heads. Meanwhile, I'm just here as the wingspan, just low key on a 7-game point streak over here. It's enjoying some nice success, and I just get to let you two just go at it.
It's been a tough week. Okay, so suffering. The suffering is the state of undergoing pain, distress, or hardship. That's the criteria. Top 5 suffering franchises.
Okay, I think that when we were talking about this in the group chat, I had the Leafs, the Sens, the Sharks, Flames, and Sabres. I think those were my 5.
In that order, Leafs being 1 and Sabres
don't
being
know.
5.
I don't know. No, I'd probably have Sharks at 5,
Okay.
and that's a toss-up. It's probably between Ottawa and Buffalo for 1.
Mm-hmm. They are suffering.
I can't put Leafs as number 1 just because like the only distress is in their fans' heads with just 82 games don't matter. I only care about playoffs, and they wait 300 days for that to come every year. So I can't put them as 1, but it is like I'm happy they got to round 2. And anyways, we don't need to go through all that stuff again. But for Buffalo, for me, it's like you think you got this really solid D-core. You got Tage Thompson emerging. I mean, geez, you got 2 first overall picks on the blue line, and Devin Levi's playing out of his mind in Rochester. And you think, like, we all thought they were going to take this big step this year and they were going to make playoffs. And there they go. They're still at the bottom, and they have these goaltending woes. It doesn't matter who they have up front. Goaltending is just a constant problem for that team.
Yeah. They went through that with Eichel, too, even. Eichel leaving as well.
They get these studs and just can't put it together to get to even just like put up a respectable record. So I feel for them because
who wouldn't want to live in the beautiful city of Buffalo?
Mm-hmm. That'd be
that
tough.
Entire Buffalo wide fan base is struggling as well on a similar level. Like I do want to see that team, or like one of the teams from Buffalo, just bring home a cup for the fans, no matter what sport at this point.
Top 5 suffering franchises. Why did you have the Flames in there?
Because they're this team that I feel like is just always supposed to be better than they actually are. Expectations are always higher than what's met, and it is not looking good, this Huberdeau contract for another 7 years. Like, there's 10 mil if he can't figure it out. They're like, how do you rebuild with 10 mil on the books? You know, and just this general uncertainty of players wanting to stick around there long term. Like individually, you think they have all the pieces, similar to Buffalo, but just on a more mature level, and players that you think like are more likely to actually be able to pull through and put up great seasons, like Lindholm and Hanifin, Rasmussen, and like Huberdeau and those guys. You think like they're gonna pull through, and they're just this constant state of turmoil, I feel like. So,
and then the Sens in there. Was Sens 1 or was Buffalo 1?
1A, 1B.
1A and 1B.
Sens are 1. You can say it. You can say it. It's okay. You can say
It's tough to tell. I feel like the social issues with Ottawa might put things first, with just like what's happened with like the players on the teams and stuff, and like the stuff that's leaked.
All right, I can tell you from a fan perspective, I feel like I've suffered quite a great deal. So I can't really disagree with you, but no, with the points you're making about the players, like they went through the whole like change of ownership process was a disaster with like Melnyk in and not paying enough for guys to stay there, then having to go through a rebuild and just not being in the playoffs for the past 6 years. All the attendance issues they've had with like not selling out their rink. Like the only time they've sold out their arena is probably for a concert. I don't even think they've had fans for full house for a game in I don't know how long. So
the accumulation of those little things like the taxi cab incident, Pinto's suspension, not signing over not giving over Dadonov's no trade list, just like all those little things kind of stacking up. Speaking of, Pinto's got to be back. No, Pinto's back soon.
Very soon, yeah, very soon. So
what about a contract?
I assume he's just re-signed for his qualifying offer.
You think he's got it?
Yeah, because he's been. I haven't heard like any announcements, and it would have had to happen prior to January, the deadline, or the December deadline for an
Oh, right.
RFA. I didn't hear any announcement though, so I'm just like assuming he kind of quietly signed his qualifying offer because he's practicing with the team and he's going to be set to play. So I'm just assuming that's what kind of happened.
I got a question for you, Rory. After you went through your top 5 suffering franchises, if you had one team in the NHL that's doing it the best, not suffering at all, everything's going good, who is it?
Probably Tampa's right up there.
I was going to say, yeah. Got to be
Even-
Tampa's one of them.
Even I feel like Chicago's going to make the smoothest transition in and out of a rebuild. Or even LA. LA would be right up there as well. We thought they were going to go into a rebuild, but somehow they're going to potentially make 2 separate runs with the same core of Doughty and Kopitar. So I think that LA and Tampa are probably the 2 that come to mind first.
Top 5 suffering franchises. Kijo, your teams that have undergone the most pain, distress, or hardships. Who do you got?
I don't know the exact order, but I'm going to agree with a lot of the things you said, Rory. The Buffalo Sabres. They can't seem to figure it out with the first round picks. Everything you said, I just think Buffalo not doing well, haven't done well for a while. They are definitely suffering and struggling. How about the team that doesn't play in an NHL arena, in the Arizona Coyotes? They are struggling. They're probably my number 1. I don't know who struggles more than the team that doesn't play in an NHL arena. Like, that's a tough one. The Sharks also not a good hockey team. I know they've been good in the past in terms of getting in the playoffs and actually getting pretty far, but I don't know where that team's going. The decisions they've made recently and in the past, I don't think the San Jose Sharks are a good franchise, and they are suffering. Columbus, it's another one. Columbus is weird too, because to me they're really suffering and they've got a lot of work to do, but it seems like their fans they buy in to the team every year. Like Columbus has, I don't know, what was it, the 5th line they said they had, and they just they try to go out and get these good players like Goudreau and Laine, and you go through you go through their roster and you can see that they try to improve, but I think Columbus is struggling. One team that I think used to be, like if you asked me 5 years ago, 100% they would have been on this list and they might even been at the top, but they've made an insane turnaround, is the Florida Panthers. Probably with Alexander Barkov, having him there, and because he's been there the longest, I think, longest tenured Panther on that team. There may be a few others, but I think that they've made a really good turnaround. They turned themselves into a really good team. Everyone talked about Tampa and how good they've been recently, and not a lot of talk about Florida, but I do think that Florida made a big turnaround and have turned that into a really good NHL franchise. And no, the Leafs are not suffering. They have the best fan base in the league. Last night in Edmonton, it was a home game for the Oilers, and every time the Oilers would start a chant, you'd hear "Go Leafs, go!" At an away game, no matter where they are. They pack the stands, put up regular season very good numbers. I don't know. Leafs aren't struggling, so I'm waiting for you to say that as well, Falco. But they're not a suffering franchise.
Yeah, the
Spoken.
team themselves,
Yeah.
on a macro level or not. Yeah, how did I miss Arizona? What did I only list
I don't know.
4 teams? Because I'm pretty sure I had them in like the text.
I think you
But I-
did, yeah. You had
yeah,
them in the
I completely
text.
missed
They were in there, but no.
But yeah,
they-
that's even a great. Got to shout out that point about Columbus. Got to respect how their GM Yarmo just always puts it all on the line every year in Columbus.
Yeah,
They
that's why I
try.
think
Does
their
the best he
fans
can.
Yeah, the fans are always there because they're like, all right, what's Yarmo doing this year? Like, let's go.
But
And even if they have a bad team, they're like, all right, let's go again.
Yeah.
What's next?
yeah, but because Columbus has like the least amount of playoff wins in games since 2000. They have had no playoff success, and then their players, like even Merzlikins, asked for a trade the other day, request to trade out of Columbus. So like clearly the players don't enjoy playing there. I don't know what there is to do in Ohio, but apparently not a lot, enough to keep
I think
a group
he wants
there.
to start. He just wants to be like a clear starter somewhere, but
They gave him starter money, like they signed him to a big
Yeah,
contract.
they did.
But I no, it's Columbus for me is doesn't quite crack my top five, but they're an honorable mention for sure. So it's you're spoken like a true Leafs fan there though, Kijo, a true delusional Leafs fan. Who,
Nope, saying it how it
who
is.
has completely
Speaking the
forgotten
truth.
all the suffering that the Leafs have made him go through, all the years with first round exits and disappointing series losses and the hype that gets built up. But you're right, from a business standpoint, they are doing really well financially, and I'm glad that gives you some sense of comfort as a fan.
Which
Because-
is why they're not suffering.
because
100%.
Since 1967, I will remind you how many cups that they have won since then. Is
Irrelevant.
A big zero.
Irrelevant.
So I think that based on that and the ways that they seem to go out every year in a burning fashion, that they do crack my top five for top five suffering franchises in the NHL. I will say that I would not put them ahead of the Sens, though. I would not have them ahead of the Sens. So the Sens, I like. Maybe if I asked you this in in that stretch there where the Leafs weren't making playoffs and the Sens were, things would be flipped around because obviously the recency of success can make a lot of people feel good, but. No, overall, for my top five suffering franchises, I have as an honorable mention, I have the Jackets and the Canucks. We talked about the Jackets a little bit. Canucks also have never won a Stanley Cup since they've been in the league in 1970. Okay, so they've been to the finals, they've lost, and right now the only reason they didn't crack it this year was because the top five for my suffering franchises was because they're doing well this year. And it looks like they're on the right path. And maybe this year they'll have some postseason success. So fingers crossed for them. I always like to see a Canadian team do well. Starting with five, I have the San Jose Sharks. At number 4, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You think the Toronto Maple Leafs are suffering more than the San Jose Sharks?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Oh my, that is
San
horrendous.
Jose
That's
San Jose
horrendous.
hasn't won a cup. They've only been in the league since 1991. And their fans, they had some good years, okay? And they're not
How many
they're the
Sharks
same.
fans do you know? How many Sharks fans?
That's irrelevant.
No, it's not. What do you
Irrelevant.
mean?
We live in a Toronto hotbed. Of course I'm going to know more Leafs fans, and I firsthand know how much they've suffered. I've seen you on the couch after a Boston Bruins Game 7, all right? I've seen that with my eyes. I haven't seen that with the Sharks. I haven't seen
You
it.
could message somebody in San Jose and say, "Hey, you want to go to the Sharks game?" And they would say, "What's the Sharks?" I don't even know. Like, what is that, basketball? They wouldn't even know.
I don't know if that means they're suffering then. That means they might just
Oh,
be a happy-go-lucky life there.
Brutal.
Leafs at 4, Ottawa Senators at 3, Arizona Coyotes at 2, and the Buffalo Sabres at 1. That's who I got. In kind of reverse order, Buffalo number 1. I think we've talked about that. Why they have the third least number of playoff wins since the 2000s. 13 straight seasons with no playoffs, and it is just cold and miserable, and players hate playing there. It's just hard to be a Sabres fan, I think, but they got some good talent there, and they just got to figure it out. I think, like you were saying, Roy, they've had good players coming in and out, and it's just trying to figure it out. So Buffalo never won a cup either in their history. They're 0-2 in Cup finals, so they've brought their fans close to feeling glory, and then they've taken that away from them. So it's tough. It'd be tough to be a Sabres fan, but yeah, so I have them at 1, Arizona at 2. Again, the attendance issues, not a lot of playoff success, and since they've been the Arizona Coyotes, even since before then, they were the Winnipeg Jets, and they have never won a cup in their history. So they're at number 2 for me. I had the Sens at 3. Again, 0-1 in Cup finals as well. They got us there, and then we lost to the Ducks, and the attendance issues, and not like we have like middle of the pack in terms of playoff wins since the 2000s, but obviously a good chunk of that zero of that has been in the last 6 years because they haven't made the playoffs in 6 years. And then lastly, I had the San Jose Sharks, who were the first. No, I had the Leafs. Sorry, the Leafs, and then I had the Sharks. Leafs, just because. I mean, I don't even have to get into all the suffering that they've put you through with blowing a 3-0 lead in Game 7, and all the years they hyped this team up to be a cup contender, and then they bowed out in the first round or the second round last year. And
But then, okay, let's say they make it to the third round. Everyone's gonna say, "Oh, they bowed out in the third round. They're not a cup contender." Like, at what point is it like, okay, they're a cup contender?
when they stop saying
You got to
they're a
lose
cup
in the
contender.
finals. Like, what's the? I don't know what it is.
Okay, I gotta say that the playoff storyline definitely just is this cloud that overshadows everything else in Leafs Nation. That probably, like, we're making it a bigger deal than it probably is, and they're probably not in top 5. Like, they're thriving in every other aspect as a franchise would want them to. So I think, if I gave it a little more thought, Buds are probably not in my top 5.
In
Like,
terms
how far
of
back can we go to say, like, okay, the Leafs have the second most amount of Stanley Cup wins. Like, they're not suffering. Like, I don't care when they were. Like, at what point do you draw the line?
That's fair. A subjective question. Like, when do you draw the line in terms of? I mean, if you go around and you ask somebody if they remember when the Leafs won a cup, I doubt, unless you're talking to somebody really old, he's probably not going to be able to answer that. So I think that has to do with suffering. I think that when you talk about the Leafs, though, being a player for that team, you're not suffering unless you're having to deal with the media every day. But you're viewed as almost like a god in that city, which is pretty cool, I think, if you're a player. So in that terms and like business-wise, like, they're not suffering, yes, but just I think the amount that gets put on them, like that they are expected to do, and then they just kind of let and disappoint yearly, it seems. I think that's what is causing most of the suffering. Whether it's like right now, it's they're making the playoffs and then they disappoint come playoffs. But before then, it was like, oh, we're expecting them to make playoffs and then they miss playoffs. Almost like the Sens this year, right? Like we're expecting more of them and they're always constantly delivering a little bit less. And for that reason, they're in my top 5 for suffering franchises. So.
You know what, Kijo, you sold me. I'm taking the Leafs out. I'll replace them with the Islanders because they're still upset about John Tavares and because they're still paying Rick DiPietro.
There you go. Perfect.
They're still paying Rick DiPietro, yeah. That's
It's okay if the
main
Leafs
reason.
won 3 straight cups, Falcons would still have them in the suffering franchise.
Yeah. If something bad is going to happen, it will happen to the Leafs. It's only a matter of time. It's a waiting game with them. And for all the other days of the year, we just got to put up with hearing about their possible success in come playoff time. And until I see it, I'll believe it when I see it. So.
But what is success to you? Seriously, do you have to win? At what point are you successful? Winning the cup.
Yes.
All right.
That is when.
If the Wings don't make the playoffs this year, this is the Leafs year.
There we go. You heard it here first. You'll hear it elsewhere as well, though. So, also fun fact, San Jose, who you could make the argument San Jose ahead of the Leafs, I guess, as well, because they're actually the first California franchise expansion team, and they're the only one that's still without a cup. So LA's come into the league, Anaheim's come into the league. Both those teams have had success in the NHL and they've won cups. San Jose's still yet to win a cup. So
I think
that's
San
tough.
Jose, aside from like this year, obviously, and like maybe the last couple of years, but they were always like a team that was just pretty good. They were pretty good, and when you're pretty good, you don't get first round or first overall picks, or you don't get like you just. It's hard to improve when you have the same guys like that are just okay, and they were an okay franchise for a long time. So I think that's where they've struggled.
And they had
Yeah.
for so many years Joe Thornton and Marlowe like leading the
And
league.
Pavelski there too.
Leading the league in assists, and then they would be the team that goes out in like the first round. Like they would have that terrible cloud that was looming over them as well. And for a while, it was like when Ron Wilson was the coach, and then he got fired. Like it was these guys can't get it done in the playoffs. So they've
They had
definitely
some-
suffered.
Yeah. Some general like pretty steady success though. Like
Mhm.
yeah, I think that we're blowing it up a little more because they are well, at the start of the year they were a historically bad team. But yeah, having like the Marlowe narrative of playing like they have the guy who's played the most NHL games on their team. And I think that they're retiring Thornton's number. I think as well.
Yeah, I
Like they've
heard
had
that.
some great players, so like the fans have had a lot to cheer about there
Yeah.
for sure the last little while.
Yeah, top 5 suffering teams. We could all agree on that. Buffalo was definitely up there. I mean, they've suffered, and even like the Bills in the playoffs right now, and but they had a time where they went to 4 straight Super Bowls and they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. If that's not suffering for Buffalo fans, for sports fans, that's as much pain and as you can go through there.
It's okay. They're taking down Mahomes this weekend.
I hope so.
I hope so.
That'll be
I
good.
don't need to watch KC anymore in the playoffs.
That'll be good. Yep. So, in other news, kind of just to wrap up today, we had the Tampa Bay alternate jerseys that got revealed. Did you guys see those?
No,
Yeah.
I got to search those up.
Mm-hmm.
Not great.
It's like they did a collab with the Bucks
Yeah.
from football.
I wasn't.
And
I
they
didn't
got,
like it.
I guess there's like a history of, there is a history of Pirates and Tampa Bay, and that's where the logo design comes from for this alternate jersey, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Wait.
It's a
Is it the
skull.
one with the skull on the
Yeah,
crest?
yeah, and a bolt on his forehead. Yeah,
What?
that's
My
their
reaction.
yeah, and that's has to do with their ties to pirates historically. Yep. So that's an out there. That's a bold design, but also with
What
on
about
the topic
All-Star
of the Lightning.
jerseys?
What about them?
What do we think?
Have you seen?
Yeah, I don't like them. I don't like them at all. They're very plain.
Looks like somebody took a fresh box of crayons and just started drawing. Not great.
They're also almost like the like they've got the sabers. They got the crossed swords.
As
right?
long
It's
as
just
they
a
don't.
different logo in front
Oh
of it.
yeah, the Lightning one. Yeah. Well, as long as with the All Star jerseys, as long as the All Star games aren't as terrible as last year, I don't care if they wear pink, purple, or whatever. I just don't want to see Makachuk in board shorts, saucer passing at surfboards again. That was just brutal. So hopefully Toronto gets it right in terms of the actual action that's going on. So.
So I didn't know that you guys flipped to the All-Star jerseys. I heard jerseys, and I thought we were on the same topic. I was still looking at them.
We've
on my
been
phone.
we've been going back and forth, so that's we're all over the place today. Trade rumors too with the Lightning. Back to the Lightning, Roy. Is Stamkos on the block? That's a question there. Is he on the block, or what are you thinking?
I don't know. He was upset in the off season. He's wanting his new contract, and then one of the headlines today, GM like basically promises he's not going to be trading Stamkos. I can't see him playing anywhere else. Like, I'm sure that they get a deal done. It's just it's fun to speculate when it's a player of that caliber and what could potentially happen, where they could potentially go.
Mm-hmm. So
what do you think they could get for him?
Oh,
What do you think Stamkos would get? What like Tampa would get back in a trade for Stamkos?
all the first round picks that they traded away over the past 4 years.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think like they're obviously still a really good team and can contend, and I could even win a Stanley Cup. But if they just were to trade a guy like that and get back some of the picks, like you just said, Fox, that they've traded, like it would be a pretty quick turnaround for them if that's the road they decide to go. But I don't know how Mr. Kucherov would think about that.
It's tough, and I would recommend not trading away key guys who have proven to be able to get it done, because it's hard to replace those guys. As like, I'll use Ottawa again as an example, but they ship out Mark Stone, they ship out Erik Karlsson, they ship out all these guys that, even Pajot from the Islanders, guys Zibanejad, like all these guys that were key parts of their team, and then now they're just a shell of what they were, and they haven't gotten back to the playoffs since. So, and look at what Stone's done. Look at what all those guys I just named are doing. Pretty sure almost all of them are in a playoff spot or close to. So it's tough to find those guys. So yeah, in terms of trade rumors though, like Ottawa's going to be a seller, Montreal is going to be a seller, and we'll
I
get
saw
more.
some stuff on Chychrun today.
Oh, I mean, teams are making calls. We'll see what ends up happening. I know, like Shabbat, teams are probably making calls on as well too. We'll see what Ottawa decides to do, but it's tough because you don't want to trade away guys who have been loyal to Ottawa either, because that doesn't look well. You'll be just the Buffalo Sabres at that point. So, right up there with the top suffering franchise for sure. So, we'll get more into trade deadline as we get closer to the deadline. That's going to be coming up in February, and it's going to be it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting to see.
Buy?
Will the Leafs buy?
Can they? Or are they at cap? Okay.
Yeah, they'll be a buyer for sure. I think they'll still have to get some contracts out, but with the guys on LTIR, I think, well, they will buy for sure.
Yeah. So trade deadline's going to be end of February. Well, actually, it's in March 8th. March 8th is when trade deadline's going to be. So we'll get into all the buyers, all the sellers, all the possibilities of what trades are going to be happening. Any bold predictions right now as to who you might see traded?
It's a tough one. I like the Merzlikins thing.
Ooh.
A lot of teams need goalie right now.
Maybe to the Buds.
To the Buds. I love it. Yeah, let's do it.
Did you see him selly the other day after the shootout win that he got against the Canucks? It was nasty. He made some big saves in the shootout, and then just full on like scorpion selly, big selly. It was anyways. So he's in play for sure, and we'll see. We'll get into the teams who we think are going to make some trades and some speculations for who's going to be traded as well.
Yeah, I'll need a refresher on like who's on expiring deals and stuff like that. So I can't really think of who on the top of my head right now. So
yeah, so it's been Other than that kind of wraps up our episode. Do you guys have any final thoughts for the upcoming week?
I don't think it's no, it's not for the upcoming week, but just to throw it out there, it's not happening. We need him to win. If you're the Leafs and you were to trade Mitch Marner, what do you get for him? I don't want them to do it. They're not going to do it, but I'm just curious what you guys think you could get for Mitch Marner.
It starts with that classic first-round pick, top prospect, and established NHLer. So those three pieces. And then I think, depending on where they are and what they can handle, it'd be like a second roster player, or it'd be like a second first-round pick or second prospect. I think or three high-end pieces, and then maybe like a middle six forward or or like top 4 defenseman.
I would go the other way with it. I think if you're
Oh,
trading Marner,
Hold on, let me stop you. You're gonna say, 4th-round pick. Trade
yeah,
for a 4th-rounder.
trade him for scraps, whatever you can get. No, I'm on the flip side. I think if they were to realistically trade Marner, go for a guy who is Mitch Marner value, one for one, almost like that like PK Subban for Shea Weber trade. Just one for one. Find a
Give
guy
me a
out
name.
there.
Huberdeau?
No, not Huberdeau. Not Huberdeau.
You don't want Huberdeau.
Give me a name.
Oh,
Just a
let's
fresh
see.
start.
Just somebody.
Couple guys looking for fresh starts. Not Marner, because he doesn't need one, and the Leafs are winning the Cup this year, and he's going to be getting the overtime winner. But continue.
I would say maybe like I know he's a really good defenseman, but like a Noah Dobson.
How
Like,
about
That might be asking too much. I think the Leafs might actually have to give up more than Marner if they wanted to pursue. But somebody on like a blockbuster trade, like one
how
for one.
about Marty
We're due for a big-
Necas? How about Marty
let's hear it.
Necas and Jacob Slavin?
Yep. I'd consider that. You're getting a stud D man on a team who's got lots of D. Plus you're getting Marty Necas, who's like almost, I think he's a point per game player this year. He's very close to, if not. Like that's I think along the lines of where the Leafs would go if they did something crazy like that. Like I don't think they'd have any interest in picks or prospects for that matter. They don't need
Yeah, if
that.
you're going the player route, I think you got to go for a higher end, like defender or goalie, and then take like a forward who's not going to be as skilled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question. Good
I like it.
hypothetical. That was good.
Is good. That is good. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, that'll wrap up our show. We'll end on that note. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, we're live on YouTube every Wednesday at 6:30. This week we started a little bit later. If you follow us on Instagram, we'll give you some updates there as well. We have a TikTok channel we post to as well, so you can give us a follow on there. But yeah, as always, we give a little. Usually I give a little Go Sens Go, but we're gonna say Go Bills Go because they got a big matchup this weekend. And overall, again, thanks for joining us, guys. It was a good episode. We'll see you again next week.